If you are over 65, there is a 44% chance you will be diagnosed with heart disease. When that diagnosis comes, your doctor will hand you prescriptions: beta blockers, ACE inhibitors, diuretics, statins, maybe digoxin, a drug so toxic it requires regular blood tests just to make sure it is not poisoning you. You will take 4, 5, sometimes 6 pills every day. You will spend hundreds of dollars every month. And you will return to the doctor every few months for the rest of your life, because these drugs do not heal. They manage. But what if there was something else? Something that worked gently over time, that strengthened your heart without blood tests, without toxicity, without creating dependence. Something you could grow yourself. There was. For 2,000 years, Greek physicians, Chinese herbalists, and European doctors used it with extraordinary success. American physicians prescribed it so widely that it entered official clinical practice in 1896. Then, in the 1930s, it vanished from American medicine. Not because it failed, because it could not be patented, because it threatened the most profitable medical system ever built. And 70 years later, when scientists finally tested it, they designed the study to guarantee it would lose. This is the story of the remedy that worked too well and cost nothing to grow. The tree that keeps hearts beating without blood tests, without toxicity, without profit margins. This is Hawthorne, and they buried it with bad science. Welcome to nature's lost vault. Dioscorides, physician to Roman armies, records a thorny tree whose berries and flowers calm a racing heart and strengthen failing circulation. He calls it the most reliable cardiovascular remedy in his entire medical arsenal. Thousands of miles away, in the year 659, the Tang dynasty documents the same plant for strengthening the heart and moving blood. Two civilizations, separated by continents, both discovering the same truth. Fast forward to 1640. English herbalist John Parkinson wrote that this remedy treats dropsy, the old term for fluid accumulation from heart failure. He noted that it steadies the heart when nothing else will. By the late 1800s, doctors across Europe were using it extensively for angina and circulatory failure. An Irish physician named Green used it so successfully that he kept the formula secret his entire life. Only after his death in 1894 was the cure revealed. It was a tincture of ripe hawthorn berries. This is Crataegus, a dense, thorny tree crowned with white flowers in spring and bright red berries by autumn. For centuries it was called Mayflower, Whitethorn, the tree of the heart. European folklore revered it as sacred, but the real magic was medical. Traditional healers knew what modern science would later confirm. The berries and flowers contain compounds that dilate coronary arteries and strengthen cardiac contractions without the violence of chemical stimulants. In North America, Cherokee healers used the bark to improve circulation. The Iroquois baked the berries into bread. They understood that this plant worked slowly and gently, building strength over months rather than forcing change in hours. It was a true cardiotonic, a remedy that nourishes the heart rather than whipping it into submission. By 1896, Hawthorne entered American clinical practice. Physicians prescribed it for irregular heartbeat and early heart failure. Medical journals documented case after case of improvement. Unlike Digitalis, the toxic foxglove extract that required precise dosing to avoid poisoning, Hawthorne had virtually no side effects. Patients took it for years without danger. Modern analysis reveals why it worked. Hawthorne contains epicatechin, quercetin, and oligomeric procyanidins. These compounds work together to relax blood vessels, improving oxygen flow to the heart muscle. They also act as powerful antioxidants, protecting heart tissue from the stress that accelerates aging. Clinical studies in the 1980s and the 1990s showed clear benefits. Patients with mild heart failure who took hawthorn extract experienced improved exercise capacity, better heart function measured by ejection fraction, less shortness of breath, and less fatigue. A 2003 meta-analysis confirmed what physicians had known for centuries. Hawthorne works. Compare this to digoxin, the pharmaceutical standard derived from foxglove. Digoxin has a narrow therapeutic index, meaning the difference between an effective dose and a fatal dose is dangerously small. Patients require regular blood tests to ensure they are not being poisoned. Too little, it does not work. Too much, and you experience nausea, vision changes including yellow-green sight, confusion, dangerous rhythms, and potentially death. Around 1% of heart failure patients on digoxin develop life-threatening toxicity. The drug interacts with dozens of common medications. Hawthorne, by contrast, is gentle. Centuries of use showed virtually no serious adverse effects. Germany's Commission E approved it for heart conditions, with no listed contraindications. It became their third most popular herbal medicine, prescribed by doctors alongside pharmaceuticals. So why did American medicine abandon it in the 1930s? The answer lies in the pharmaceutical revolution. Between 1920 and 1950, medicine transformed. The pharmaceutical golden era began. Companies that started as apothecaries became research powerhouses. They were not interested in plant remedies you could grow in your backyard. They wanted patentable molecules, synthetic drugs that could be owned, controlled, and sold at premium prices. The 1930s saw massive investment in cardiac pharmaceuticals. Digoxin could be isolated, purified, and patented as a specific formulation. It required doctor visits, blood tests, and dose adjustments, an entire infrastructure of profitable management. Hawthorne required none of that. You could harvest berries from wild trees. You could make tinctures at home. There was no way to patent a plant that had been used for 2,000 years. As pharmaceutical companies expanded after World War II, they produced over half the world's medicines by the late 1940s. They transformed drug salesmanship into professional education. Representatives visited physicians' offices. They advertised in medical journals. They funded research on their own drugs. Slowly, medical schools began teaching pharmaceutical solutions as first-line treatments. Plant medicines, even those with centuries of success, were dismissed as folk remedies, primitive, unreliable, unscientific. By the 1950s, Hawthorne had disappeared from American medical textbooks. An entire generation of physicians graduated believing that heart disease required exclusively pharmaceutical intervention. The knowledge did not die. Germany and France kept using it, but in America it was erased. Then came 2009. After decades of European success, American researchers decided to test it. The study was called Herb-CHF, and here is how they designed it to fail. They took 120 patients with heart failure who were already on aggressive pharmaceutical therapy. Nearly 90% were on beta blockers, 95% were on ACE inhibitors, 80% were on digoxin. These patients were taking 4, 5, sometimes 6 different heart drugs simultaneously. Then researchers added Hawthorne on top of everything and measured if it provided additional benefit. The result? No significant improvement. The headline read, "Hawthorne provides no benefit." But think about this design. It would be like testing whether a wooden wheel works by bolting it onto a Ferrari, already driving at 200 miles per hour, and then concluding wooden wheels are useless because the car did not go faster. The study was not testing whether Hawthorne works. It was testing whether Hawthorne works when added to a chemical cocktail designed for a completely different mechanism. In fact, a deeper look revealed that patients in the Hawthorne group actually got worse initially. Why? Drug interactions. Hawthorne likely interacted with the 5 other powerful drugs they were taking. Beta blockers, ACE inhibitors, and digoxin all have known interactions with compounds in Hawthorne. The researchers themselves speculated this in their analysis. But that nuance never made the headlines. Earlier studies, where Hawthorne was used alone or as primary therapy, showed clear benefits. A 1994 trial found Hawthorne as effective as low-dose ACE inhibitors for mild heart failure. Multiple studies documented improved exercise capacity and quality of life. But those studies did not get the headlines. The negative conclusion of Herb CHF became the official story. Hawthorne does not work. Case closed. Except in Germany, where doctors kept prescribing it successfully. Except in France, where it remained in the national pharmacopoeia. Except in China, where traditional medicine never abandoned it. The message was clear. Pharmaceutical medicine had won. Plant remedies were declared obsolete. Follow the money. Standard heart failure drugs, beta blockers, ACE inhibitors, and diuretics represent a multi-billion-dollar global market. They require lifelong prescriptions and constant monitoring. Digoxin alone, even as a generic, generates consistent revenue through required doctor visits and blood tests every few months. Hawthorne threatens that model. If doctors prescribed Hawthorne for mild heart failure, or if patients grew it themselves, the revenue stream evaporates. You cannot patent a tree. You cannot force patients to return for blood monitoring. You cannot create a pharmaceutical dependency. What you can do is design studies that make the plant look ineffective when compared to drug cocktails, and then cite those studies as proof that science has debunked traditional medicine. This is the same story we've seen with amaranth, tepary beans, and mesquite. Effective, accessible solutions buried under bad science and corporate marketing. A study designed to show no benefit, published as proof of no benefit. The context that traditional use was always as primary therapy, not add-on therapy to 5 other drugs, was ignored. And because most people trust the science without questioning who designed the study or why, Hawthorne remains forgotten. Available, technically. You can buy extracts in health stores, but your doctor won't mention it. Medical schools don't teach it. Insurance doesn't cover it. It exists in the margins, where pharmaceutical companies prefer it. But Hawthorne never stopped working. In Germany, standardized Hawthorne extract is still prescribed by physicians for heart failure. It's recommended by medical guidelines. Patients take it for years with excellent safety profiles. The extract is manufactured to consistent standards, studied extensively, and integrated into cardiovascular care. A review in 2019 found it significantly lowers blood pressure in mild hypertension. Studies confirm it protects blood vessel walls from damage that leads to atherosclerosis. The tree itself remains ubiquitous. It grows wild across North America and Europe, thriving in hedgerows and parks. Every spring it flowers white. Every autumn it produces red berries. Waiting. If you have access to hawthorn trees, the berries can be harvested in autumn when they are deep red. They can be dried for tea or tinctured in alcohol. The flowers and young leaves in spring also hold medicine. But a critical distinction, hawthorn is gentle. It works over months, not hours. It supports heart function. It does not force it. It is preventative medicine. The kind of slow, steady support that builds resilience rather than creating dependency. It does not replace emergency medicine. It does not replace treatment for acute heart failure. If you have diagnosed heart disease and are on prescription medications, do not stop those medications without physician guidance. What Hawthorne offers is an alternative for supporting heart health before pharmaceutical intervention becomes necessary. This story teaches us a lesson about modern medicine. We are told that science replaced superstition, that pharmaceuticals made plant remedies obsolete. But what if effective, affordable remedies were replaced simply because they did not generate profit? Hawthorne worked for 2,000 years. It worked for Greek physicians, Chinese herbalists, European doctors, and American clinicians. Then, in a single generation, it was erased from American medicine. Not because it failed, because it could not be owned. The pharmaceutical industry built an empire on molecules that require constant supervision, regular blood testing, and careful dose management. They call it progress. But when a tree that grows wild can strengthen hearts without toxicity and without profit margins, maybe progress is not the right word. Maybe the right word is control. Hawthorne still grows. The knowledge still exists. The choice is whether we remember before we need it, or rediscover it when the system built to replace it finally fails. This knowledge is not lost. It is waiting in every tree, every berry, every flower, waiting for hands willing to harvest and hearts willing to remember. If this vault opened something for you, subscribe to Nature's Lost Vault and hit the bell. Every like and every share preserves what they tried to erase. The next vault opens soon.